There's some of them that are just too fragile and too new to share, and that's fine. But if there are any of you who just really have the freedom as a couple to share what's happened with you here, to encourage someone else, I'd like you to do that this morning. You know, it tells us in 1 Corinthians that there's no temptation taken us that's such as is common to man. And what stops a lot of testimonies is the fact, I can't share that. These are ATI families. I'm so awful, nobody else has ever done this one. That's not true. You don't know what goes on in the hearts of everybody else. And Jim could certainly testify to the fact that there are worse sins, if you want to classify it that way, and worse problems in ATI families than in your average church. But why? I mean, hey, if I were going to shoot at a target range and I had a choice of shooting at something that was clearly visible and easy and just shining, with my eyesight, it would be a whole lot better to shoot at that one than something far away and minuscule that didn't really count. And we're shining targets for Satan. We have chosen to follow the Lord. And we're going to be hit with far worse things than other families. I know one year when I went to Knoxville, Ed wasn't able to go. I think it was that year, it was in Oklahoma. But I came home and I told him, I says, you know, I'm beginning to think that the criteria for being an ATI is to have an older rebellious child. Because I was just seeing it in family after family after family. And then, of course, the story of the ox and everything, the musk ox came out, and it was talking about how the wolves would, you know, pick out the weakest one. And I could see this happening. We see it happening here all the time as we counsel with families, that Satan just knows where to attack. And as we heard from Craig last night, it was worth it to him to do anything he could to protect that weak one and strengthen her. So, you know, we need to get over this embarrassment that what's happened in our lives couldn't possibly have happened to anybody else's. So is there anybody after that encouragement that would like to share this morning and encourage the rest of us?
I'd like to share something. I'm not a very good communicator, and my wife knows that, and the Lord convicted me that communication is a tool that He can use for me to minister to her. Now, y'all probably all knew that, but I'm kind of slow, and sometimes it takes something to show me that. But I was encouraged by the Nancy DeMoss video, and in that she's hurting in a lot of areas, and she's suffering through some things, and some suffering through some lies that Satan has thrown at her. And the ways that I know about that is if I communicate with her. And so, but before you guys and before my wife, I'm committing to be a better communicator. And it's going to take some time, and I know the Lord's going to work with me on that, and she will too. And so I'm encouraged by that.
I'll be happy to bring the mic to anybody that doesn't want to walk up here. Anybody else?
The way the Lord touched me is something I totally didn't expect, because I didn't know I had a problem in this area. I never get mad, almost never get mad, and you know, I'm just easygoing. And so yesterday we saw Mr. Logan, and something was said, and I got mad. Not even at a person that's here or anything that's, you know, it just totally shocked my husband to see me that angry. And I've had migraines since I was 13 and had all kinds of medical tests. And they decided that it was probably some sort of seizure-related event. But immediately after we left Mr. Logan, I started getting a headache. And I said, well, maybe it's anger. I don't understand anger. I don't know anything about real anger. And so it got so bad that I had to decide that maybe it was anger. And we went up to our room, and I realized I hadn't even thought about it. The first time I got a migraine, I was 13. And I remembered the event. And it was real painful to me. It wasn't a big deal, but my mother did something that was really, really painful. And I had that horrible migraine that day and never really thought about it again. And I just realized that I really do have anger. I just don't feel it. And then Mr. Logan came in and talked about how he had this problem with God, and it was a lack of feeling in that area. So I'm looking forward, and you know, you hear the word bitterness, and I'm not a bitter person because I never get angry. And now I have to face that I have some bitterness to deal with, and not just with that event since I was 13, but probably my whole life. It's such a habit. And I don't know how to deal with anger yet, because I have to, I guess, first get aware of when it happens.
Thank you, Louise. Isn't it great that we have this great physician who does know how to deal with it? Anybody else? You're going to get real bored if I have to talk for the next 45 minutes.
I don't know if most of you know it, but we live down in South Texas, and we raise cattle, and we train cattle. And you'll get some of them in there that you'll think that the devil is just really inspired. I mean, you can't do anything with them. And I think we have a real opportunity as ATI parents to train our children the way nobody else can, as long as we do it through the Lord. And with He being the leader, there's not any of them out there that are not trainable. I don't care how bad they may seem, or how far they're going to drift off into trouble. And we are going to try to keep them from doing that. But if they do, through prayer and through our instructions that we get from our Lord, they will all come home to roost. And I just want to share that with you, because there's not a wild animal out there that won't do it. And when we've got Christian families, especially like we've got in ATI, there is no better training ground for these beautiful teenagers and children that we're bringing up. And I just want to share with that this morning, and ask the Lord to encourage all of you and give you the faith that you need to follow through on this great mission that He's put you on. Thank you.
Next. I would like to tell you that the Mother's Conference brochure this year, we have a lovely 8-page brochure. And I'd like to share a personal testimony. You know, you think these people that work for the ministry, you know, they must just be a little more spiritual, or you know, how do they get to that position? We have that mindset about anybody in Christian work, whether they're a pastor or whatever, and we think, you know, they don't really have problems. This 8-page brochure, we put a lot of time and effort into. I wanted to send it out to every mother in ATI to encourage her. We have an article by Elizabeth Elliott. My husband and I both wrote letters. We planned all the conferences. You know, it took weeks to put this thing together. And Mr. Gothard was going to mail it out. And when it came time to mail it, he said, I've decided I'm not going to mail it. I'm going to put it out through the homeschool superintendents. Now, I should be the type of person who, when the director of the ministry says that, I just immediately say, that's a great idea. We can just get the husbands behind this and so on and so forth. That's what I encourage all the women to say. But I didn't think that. I got really angry. I did my typical female thing and I cried, and I ran and raved to my husband. And I had a real problem with being under that authority. Because, it's hard enough, guys, for us to be under a husband's authority. But then when you have to be under somebody else's authority, too, that's just even harder. And, I'm not going to go to Mr. Gothard and rant and rave. That's, my ranting and raving stops at my husband. But God had to deal with me, and I had to get my heart right over that. And God had to show me that, I didn't put you in charge of this ministry. I put Bill Gothard in charge of this ministry. And I'm going to direct what you do through him, and you're going to have to accept that. And you're not just going to have to accept it, you're going to have to embrace it. And you're going to have to be thankful for it. And you're going to have to, bottom line, realize I'm in charge of this ministry. And God began to show me that when I reject the authority of those he's placed over me, I'm just saying, God, I reject you and I don't trust you. And God had to deal with me on that. And it's just a new step for me in faith of what God's going to do through these mothers' conferences. It's really been great because Bill really wanted to encourage the men to go to the home superintendent's councils. Then on top of that, the letter that was supposed to go out to the superintendents to tell them to photocopy their brochure didn't even go out. And so I had to deal with those emotions. But the word is getting out, and we are getting applications in. And the ladies that God wants to come to these conferences are going to be there. And daily I have to trust God for that. I have to learn that it's not what I do that's going to make these successful, unless what I do is what God wants me to do, and I'm trusting him in all of it. So we're all learning. It's all something that it's a day-by-day process. For us, since we do have the opportunity to be a little closer to what's going on in the ministry and to, get some additional training. We don't get to go to conferences like this. But our goal is to minister to other parents, to minister to families. That's what Ed and I have committed our lives to. The ministry that God has called us to is with ATI and with IBLP. People ask us how long we're going to be here. I don't know. I just know that last time we asked him if we could leave, he said no. And, we're just like every other couple. We get discouraged with what we're doing. We have problems finding the right church, except that we're finding it for your kids as well as for ourselves. And that puts an even greater burden. But, if you want a prayer target, if you've got a problem, you're welcome to use us. We get a lot of those problems just magnified. But it's such a joy when you choose to send your young people here. And we have a chance to have them for a short time as part of our family. And to just give them an opportunity to put the training that you've done to use. Because it's really a misnomer to call this a training center. They come here to minister and have a chance to work out the training you've given them. And we're thankful for that.
Maybe explain some of the opportunities that are available for young people at the Dallas Training Center.
I'd love to. Bill Keating's really laughing at that because we've got his two sons here right now. We generally take students 16 and up. we found that there's just a real maturity difference between most 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds. I know that in ATI we try to stay away from kind of age limitations, and we get a lot of this, oh, my 12-year-old is very mature. They may be, and that's very good and well in your home, but that's under the God-given protection there. We don't feel called to be able to take students that young and have that responsibility handed over to us. So occasionally we take 15-year-olds after Ed has talked to the parents, otherwise it's 16. Both young men and women. This facility, when we first started out, it's like, oh, that's Excel. We won't sell it. We won't send our sons there. Excel is only what we do about 20 weeks out of a 52-week year. The rest of the time, there are all sorts of other activities here. We host the Dallas Basic. We had the Children's Institute stay here during the Fort Worth Basic. Occasionally, we put on financial freedom seminars. The first week of May, Dr. Brandon's bringing in some officials from the juvenile court that will be hosting a Basic here at the center and providing meals during that time. We do all the mothers' conferences. The healthcare consultants have their meetings here 3 times a year. Beg pardon? Yeah, the all-day minister seminar in which we have people spend the night here. We do occasionally operate as kind of a bed and breakfast for people traveling through. We do, well, the couples conferences, we branched out into that. In July, we're doing our first conference that will be non-ATI people, where Bernadine Cantrell has been speaking at the all-day minister seminars, and the women whose husbands are involved with IBLP who attend those, we're doing kind of a, it'll be the first one of its kind for women who are not in ATI to come here to the center and do a conference for them. During all those conferences and all throughout the year, this is a 6-story building that needs to be maintained. The beds need to be made, the bathroom scrubbed, the tiles done. In between time, we do have chandeliers to do, hall lights. There's always light bulbs to be replaced. Anything you would do in a home, multiply that times 127 bedrooms. And that's just about what we've got. Not only that, we have to plan that. When we planned the first couples conference, I stood up in Knoxville and announced it. And on the way back from Knoxville, it suddenly hit me. I can't put those couples in twin beds. So my husband graciously said, okay, Gloria, we'll move the furniture again. But this is it. Then we had Excel coming in. We had to have enough room for them. And when the couples conference came, we had a few twin beds that we had to push together and, lash the box springs together, with frames with masking tape and put on king-size mattresses on top of that and everything. And when that was all over, my husband said, Gloria, this is it. I do not want to keep moving furniture in this building. It's old. It's getting broke. You have got to decide where you want things. I mean, you ladies put up with this when your husband moves furniture in a home. I'm dealing with 6 stories of this. And he says, you cannot move any more furniture. And so I spent about 4 hours trying to decide, okay, we have this many rooms we have to have for Excel, and this many rooms for advanced Excel during that same thing. And then we have healthcare come during that time, and I have to have rooms for all those people, and we have to have 2 people to a room, and I can't put 2 double beds. In fact, we don't even have that many double beds anymore, and you obviously can't put 2 kings in a room. I'm going through all this stuff. We finally got it settled. We're down to the point now where we can accommodate 59 couples in rooms and put the speaker in Mr. Gothard's suite. We haven't had 60 couples yet, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do at that time, except just to go to him and say, honey. But those beds are all moved by your students. Those furniture placements and cleaning up and dusting, vacuuming the carpeting when the furniture is moved and everything, that's all done by your girls when they come here. All the dusting and, just all of that stuff. We have cleaning instructions on exactly how to clean a room. We have instructions on how to clean the lobby, how to clean the restrooms. We've had to, write up all of these procedures and everything because You train your children, and then they work in your home for you. I sometimes get new kids every 2 weeks, and they have to be trained all over again. In the kitchen, Ed has to train them. Okay, we need to get the food out on the line. On the line needs to be salt and pepper and peanut butter and the different jams and jellies, and the hot food has to be kept hot and the cold food has to be kept cold. We need to put it on ice. We need to make sure that we don't run out of things out there. You need to tell me that if there's one pan in the warmer and one pan in the funnel or in the thing out there, that when you replace it, and there's no more things in the warmer, and we've still got 50 people standing in line, you need to tell me that. And sometimes the students don't tell him. And they come in and they say, Mr. Daniel, we've still got about 20 people in line, and there's no food out there. We'll get it out of the warmer. Well, we've already used the one in the warmer. You know, at that time is not the time. Why didn't you tell me you took it out of the warmer? It's the time to go fix some more food. Because the way we do a line with everybody, we don't have time to do a plate to plate, which is the only portion control you have, and so you have to second guess. And you don't want to have a lot of leftovers because it takes longer to fix the leftovers, and we can only reheat one leftovers one time by law, and then anything left over has to be thrown away. Because we're under the state of Texas here. This is a hotel restaurant. And my husband and I had to take classes in order to be licensed to run it. So that's kind of the food service end of it. And there's a lot of cleaning to be done in the kitchen. Here in the hotel, there is always a toilet breaking down. But on 5th floor, if you have a plumbing problem, you have a plumbing problem on 4th, on 3rd, on 2nd, on 1st, in the basement. You have leaks if you have air conditioning problems. This hotel is almost 100 years old. And so, you know, there's a lot of maintenance. But my husband, over the years, and we've been married 34 years, and I have seen him over the years do so many different things. You know, he's hung wallpaper, he's laid tile, he's laid linoleum, we had a beautiful yard, he's done all sorts of maintenance, he's done all sorts of painting, both inside and out. He worked for a catering company that provided meals for forest fighters to where he cooked for like up to 2,000 people and managed all of that. And just all of these different things. But we never had a lot of income. And I used to think, Lord, why is it with all the expertise he has that he can't get some fabulous paying job? Well, we probably wouldn't have come here if he'd had that. You know, God knows exactly what our limitations are and when we're going to be obedient and when we're not. But he gave him so much in expertise. I would never let him do the ironing in our home, because when you have somebody who can do so many different things, and he's so good at it, I said, I've got to have one thing that just I do. Because if you become expert at that too, you're not going to need me. But he has used every one of those things since we've been here, including teaching a young man one evening how to iron, because he didn't know how to iron his shirt for church the next day. But all those things, you have to realize, some of you have been in ATI for years, some of you really have it together in your homes. We get some ATI families that it's their first year. We get their kids, they're out of public school. They've never been home to learn how to even do their own laundry. And they come here to the center, and there's still a lot of training to be done. And we want those kids to go home a little bit different than they came here. We want, one sweet mom shared with me how her son came home after being here and said, Mom, you've been saying this house needs to be cleaned. It does. I see the dirt now. That's my goal when I do hospitality training in Excel, is I feel like when it says in Proverbs that a woman looks well to the ways of her household, that means she sees the dirt. And how many of your kids don't see the dirt? You have to show it to them. Those are some of the things we do here at the center with your young people. I teach the girls, what you're doing in hospitality and in cleaning, do it joyfully. Love what you're doing. You're going to be doing it the rest of your life. And if you're miserable, that's horrible. Enjoy cleaning. Enjoy the satisfaction of a clean house, polished silver. Don't try to knock yourself out and do it all in one day. I used to do that. And then I was a grouch. And, it's like, take your shoes off when you walk in the kitchen. But there's a lot of stories behind that, too. I'll just tell one briefly. One Christmas, I'd had the flu. I was sick, and I'm trying to get all the sewing and everything else done. And Christmas Eve comes time for the stockings. We're putting gifts in. And my husband suddenly realizes, he says, honey, I didn't even get you a stocking gift. He got down on his hands and knees, stayed up till midnight, and stripped and waxed my kitchen floor as my stocking gift. And when he got done, he said, honey, I can't believe how hard this is, and you've been doing it all these years. I'm going to help you with it. I'm going to start doing it. Just, something little, but I kept that stocking gift and those thoughts for the rest of my life. But does that answer your question? We also have a huge piece of property out here that we put a notice in the Standard. We've got to get some young men 18 and over that want to come here to the center to learn landscaping. We just have a young man who went home that during his time here, because he was willing to study with the older man who comes and donates one day a week to work on our air conditioning units, he is now certified in air conditioning repair. Not every young man who comes here will go home certified because he won't do the study that's required. But if he wants to put in the time and he wants to work with Mr. West, he will go home. He will be able to take the test to be certified in air conditioning repair. There's a lot to be learned out here in landscaping. I told my husband when that park went in, I told him rather sternly and in tears, I said, honey, you can't do it. You're going to kill yourself. He said, I won't. When that park goes in, we have got to get some older young men, and God will bring them. He hasn't yet, but we know He's going to. Up until that time, our maintenance man around here for landscaping was my husband. He still does all of it out in the gazebo, but he does it with the help of the young men that God provides. Like I said, the Keatings have given us their 2 young men. In fact, they have made a commitment to us, and I'll just share this. I don't think they'll mind. They can hit me afterwards if they do. They came to us and they said, we're committing to you that our sons are available to you this year. They're not going to do any children's institutes. When you call, they're available. That's fantastic. We have the Rudisill guys and James Delmo that have been coming over the last couple of years. Ed just knows that anything around here that he needs to turn over, he can turn over to them. And by the end of the year, the Keating guys are going to be the same way. You don't think I don't love those families and those young men for protecting my husband like they do? But that's what we do here at the center. It's just a big opportunity for your kids to learn to minister. They're not getting paid. In fact, you're paying to send them here. The way the Institute set it up, there's a $25 fee for training and a $25 a week for their meals and stuff. It starts out, the first week is $50 for training, so it's $75 for that week. Generally, that $75 doesn't go for over 2 weeks. If they need that much training by the end of 2 weeks, they're too much for my husband, and he sends them home to their dad. Then it drops to $50 a week. Then it drops to $25 a week. And then when they're trained, if at all possible, we bring them in. If we've got a conference like this where the conference is paid for, we don't even charge the families to bring them in because we need their expert help. But that's kind of how we keep things going. There's expenses around here. When you pay an $8,000 utility bill in the summertime, you have to have some income. But with only one mom and dad and all those kids to look after and doing it, week after week and 7 days a week, sometimes we don't do things, every single week because it takes a while to do the laundry from 120 beds. At the December couples conference, we got enough money collected that we got 2 big, they're not commercial, but they're the big Maytag Neptunes that we purchased 2 sets, and they're in the basement, and it cut our laundry time in half. after a conference. But during Excel, this is why we're also trying to find out about families who may even want to come and help. We don't have women help in the kitchen because I'm not down there, and we don't feel like just a woman should be helping my husband in the kitchen. We just use students. But if a man had some cooking expertise and he wanted to come and help, for 10 weeks during Excel, my husband works 7 days a week because people eat 7 days a week. And there's, just about the time you think you've got some time off, you have like a major air conditioning leak that if he doesn't have enough people, then he's up at 10 or 11 o'clock at night up in somebody's room fixing something, because you can't go without air conditioning in the summertime. So, as the Texans would say, y'all come. That's why I want you to fill out those slips with names and addresses. You are appreciated around here. We could not do what God has called us to do without you. One thing I would like to mention, since we did told you that we needed washers and dryers at Christmas time, hopefully your tapes are really good. Our tape deck is biting the dust around here. It doesn't loop anymore. That's why we had the young men in here so often with doing the tapes and everything, because it is just, it's gone. When we collected this money at Christmas time, things like that, we just have to pray for donations. At Christmas time, we did the washers and dryers. We put all new speakers in here in the dining room and bought the new mic. But that took all the donation money. Because before the couples conference started, I thought we had enough money we were going to be able to buy the tape deck. And I went to Ed. He said, Gloria, the money's all been spent. And so I said, okay, we'll make it go for one more, but can I announce to the couples that that's a need we have? And he gave me permission to do that. So, if you would feel that the Lord would want you to donate towards a new tape deck, they're about $700 or $800. And when we have needs around here, the needs that we've prayed for that God has provided have been miraculous. When we didn't have a big mixer, God provided a Hobart and the funds to buy it with. When we needed new convection ovens, $10,000, God provided the money. When we needed a meat slicer, Ed did the research, and at the time he found it, the $2,000 came in. And it's living by faith around here for what we need to keep this place going. And we don't generally share needs, but since you're here and you're going to go home with some tapes that aren't quite the quality they should be, that's just kind of by way of explanation and to let you know what our current need is. I'm really getting tired of talking. Is there anybody else who wants to share a testimony this morning? I definitely want to give you the opportunity. We're not going to be taking our photographs for about another 20 minutes. Thanks.
There's just something about using a microphone, I think, that puts the fear in all of us. I just praise God for this conference. It has been an absolute blessing to both my husband and I just thank him, like you said, those flyers did not go out, and that we were made aware of it and were able to come. And God has showed me some real truths this week, the lies that I have been believing. God has given us some real freedom today. We met with Mr. Logan this morning, and I just feel free in knowing that I am normal. For years, I have felt that I'm not normal, that I'm different, that I am incredibly more sinful than everyone else. And he's just let me know that the struggles that I'm going through are very common. And that just, even in knowing that, has given me just a freedom to know that I can go home and know that I need to tell myself the truth, that I'm complete in Christ, and that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I just praise him for this opportunity to be here. And I just thank you so much for having us here. Just as we walked around this place, I just keep under my breath going, I cannot imagine the amount of work that goes on to maintain this place. And you and your husband are here with the help of a few kids doing this all. And I just really thank you for it. And it's definitely being here. We will lift you up in prayer because we know what you're going through being here a little bit. So thank you so much.
Yes, good.
Just to continue what wife was saying, she was the one that found the flyer or heard about it, and she came up with the idea. This July will be our 20th wedding anniversary, so this is our wedding anniversary that we're here. And some of the things I learned this week and was one on the communication, to communicate with my wife. We have 7 children. We're busy all the time, and it seems like we never have the time that we can talk. Like Mr. Logan said, it's more than, just the weather. What's the weather like? It seemed like our conversation was a lot at that. But to have that communication, and also to be the protector, as far as husbands, to be the protector of the wife, and also the children. And and that's one of the things I purposed in my heart, to do that. And the Lord spoke to me too, is, I'm so busy with work at times that I hadn't had the time to spend in devotion, with the Lord myself and with my wife. I spent a lot of time with the children and wisdom search and that, but just having the time in the Word to know the truth, for the truth will set you free.
I guess I just wanted to share that when we found out that we were going to be coming here, I right away had the attitude of another ATI function, and that mindset you can sometimes have of thinking, oh, we've got to be this and we've got to be that. And I right away thought, what's it going to be like? So I called, and because sometimes I find the time can be so consumed with everything so I had this idea that a couples conference will be just full of listening and no time just to spend with each other. So I called and I said, is it a pretty rigid schedule? And the girl had said, well, we keep your time full. And I thought, oh, great. So when I got off the plane, I had a really ripe attitude. And but God just blessed us. He put the lug bills and the Diedrichs in our van, and then when I found out we were picking Mr. Logan up, and I thought, oh great, I'm sorry, and I thought, well, God knows who I need to be with, right? And I guess I just wanted to thank the Daniels for having such a beautiful conference here, that we could have spare time and we could enjoy good food together, and that it wasn't the rigid schedule that I thought it was going to be. I guess the other thing too, when we listened to the Nancy DeMoss tape, she said something on there about don't use tiredness or seasons of life as an excuse for carnality. And it was like in my heart, because I thought, we've learned that our children sometimes need a spanking to clear their conscience, and their eyes can clear when they've been disciplined properly. And I just know now God needed to spank me because I needed to be rescued from myself. I was a woman out of control, and I kept excusing my sinfulness for tiredness or whatever. There was always an excuse for not behaving the way I knew God wanted me to behave. And when she said that gentleman looked at her and said, don't use your tiredness as an excuse for carnality, it was just then that I realized I was believing lies, and that I wasn't the woman, the wife, the mother that God would want me to be. And I was setting such a terrible example for my daughters and even my sons, because I know if I was a son, I would think, who wants a wife, But I know God can take me home now, and He can use that. And every time that I can feel myself slipping to that carnal side, which is always there, I know God will be gracious to bring that to mind again. And I'm just really thankful for this conference.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Stand aside. Just to give me strength. This is a year-long process for me, because this time last year is when I was here for the Mothers Conference, and I'm going to cry. I had a lot of baggage from my past, from my childhood, a lot, and had never been free and had spent 8 years in counseling. And I want to tell you that 8 years ago, my husband and I spent 3 years without talking. I mean, we said, good morning, and how are you, and what time do you have to be at work, and because he has a job where has a very flexible schedule, but we didn't talk for 3 years. And during that time, I prayed so much that the Lord would provide a friend I could talk to, and he didn't. And I didn't like that. And what I learned was to talk to the Lord. And, we came to this conference, and we have the best marriage I know. I have a wonderful husband. And we talk, and these communication things we mostly didn't need. I mean, we got to some really nitpicky little things when we were talking the other night. I thought, wow, these things I'm telling you are really nitpicky. Because we've worked through so much, and the Lord has blessed us so much, and this is really a wonderful man. And I'm wanting to say, if you are where we were, God can turn that around. And if you are a wife and your heart is so empty because you don't know this man that you married anymore, God can change that. God can restore the years the locusts have eaten. I promise you He can. And Mr. Logan has blessed my life so much because I gained so much freedom last year. And one thing I don't want to tell you, but I'm going to because that keeps coming up now, I'm really shaking, is that I had to go home from that couples conference last year and pull my sons and my husband into the living room, and I had to say in front of all of them that my sons were rebellious because I was rebellious. And I had to say, I've taught you not to be obedient because your father will say to me to do something and I won't do it. And just last week, he said something to the youngest one that I didn't like, and I rolled my eyes. And the youngest one saw me, and so what did he think? And so right there, I said, oh, Stephen, I rolled my eyes. That was wrong. I'm sorry. And I turned to my husband. I said, that was wrong. Will you please forgive me? And, maybe that's not your problem, but if it is, look at yourself and see if you're teaching your children not to be obedient. Because that's where my sons were learning it. And I cannot tell you the difference in our home since I decided that I was going to be obedient. And these are wonderful people. Come to a mother's conference.
Anybody else? Thank you.
My wife saw in one of the brochures about the couples conference, and if I saw it, I read over it or something because I don't remember noticing it. But and she said, "What do you think about going there?" And I thought, well, maybe. It said there would be more details at the superintendent's council meeting, and so, but then I think there were no brochures there, and so somehow we didn't get the mailing that month. And so I ended up calling down here and having them send up a letter. But I have the gift of teaching. And when I got the letter, I saw all these things about the mothers' conferences, but just so little detail about the couples conference. And I thought, I still don't think I know what's going to be happening there, And it's like I always think I need to know, what it's going to be about to know whether it's something that we should go to. But I decided that room, and they said there was, and so we decided to come down. And I'm just grateful for the conference and just for the way the Lord has spoken to my heart. Excuse me. And I'm just, by the grace of God, I'm going to work harder at being a better communicator in my home and a better protector. I think yesterday when Mr. Logan was talking about from Job, it wasn't anything entirely new, but just a reminder of how important it is, to daily intercede for my family as Job did, and to get them all inside that hedge of protection. so that Satan can't get to them without permission from the Lord. And so anyway, I just am thankful for all of your work, you and Mr. Daniel and the staff, and just for the Lord's faithfulness in bringing us here. And I'm trusting Him to continue to work in my heart and my life.
Anyone else?
I really appreciated the information that Mr. Logan gave us on communication. I tend to have a strong gifting. I think I'm an exhorter. My wife thinks I'm a prophet. But I've always been a win or withdraw kind of guy. And we went upstairs, and my wife said, well, are we going to do our assignment? And I put it out of my mind. And so in my pride, I said, well, I rate myself a protector about a B+. You know, that's pretty good. And so we began to discuss, and there's a common theme that I hear among ATIA families, especially those that have a strong gifting in their family, is that they're discouraged about their church. And a lot of times we are right. You know, we're right. But a lot of times what happens is Satan will use that truth to get our focus off of Christ. And that's exactly what had happened to me. We'd gone into this community with a church, and we were invited by the pastor to come, and there were a lot of problems in the church, and they weren't getting fixed as quickly as I wanted because our pastor is one of those mercy types, you know. He loves people. I don't understand that. So, at any rate, with my strong gift of exhortation, and his less strong gift of mercy, things weren't happening quite as quickly as I'd liked. And so I began so focused on the things that were wrong and the truth that I had that I had totally gotten out from under authority and become rebellious in my heart. And as my wife and I were communicating, that was a great fear that she had, was that I had gotten so out of balance with my truth that it was either win or we're going to quit. There was no resolution. There was no yielding for a while. And so we ended our discussion, and we had come to a point where I could not come to an agreement with her. And so we went to bed, and I felt myself withdrawing. I had not won, so I felt myself withdrawing, and so that was hurting her, and so it was just pride, and God brought a humbling, kind of a crunch to my heart, and I just felt sick. I just felt sick, and I began to realize that I had gotten my focus off of Christ, and because of the problems that I saw in the church and my struggle and my focus on the problem, I had neglected my responsibility at home, and I had gotten to the point where I could not have victory over my flesh. And I just want to encourage y'all that in your situations that you're in where God has put you to worship and to serve, that you don't get your focus off on the truth. there's a lot of problems in these churches. But Mr. Logan said that temptation is something that Satan brings along to bring our focus off of Christ. And it can be something, Satan did it to Jesus, get up there and jump off, because, the truth of the matter is God's not going to let you dash your foot against a stone. And we get so focused on the truth of the matter that we lose our focus on Christ. And I just want to encourage you, don't get so focused on the problems and the truth that you have, especially you with stronger giftings, that you lose your focus on Christ and lose your ability to have a relationship with your wife, your children, and those in your church. And I just wanted to share that with you.
Anybody else? Now, I'm a Mercy, so y'all have to bear with me. One of the things that was so revealing to me this weekend is we're a first-year family, and a lot of things, my oldest is 10, and a lot of things have come out with him this year that I didn't know were there, and a lot of it has to do with spiritual warfare. And it wasn't just on him, but it's on me. And Mr. Logan pointed out, God has just really blessed me with this wonderful relationship with him this year. Well, he's just been leading me up to it, but he's just really, it's a tender relationship, and he speaks to my heart wonderful things and reveals things to me. But Satan knows this. And I didn't know that Satan could speak to your heart. And he speaks to my heart, and I get confused about what's from God and what's from Satan. And thankfully, I'm married to a prophet who I can go to, and he can clear this stuff up for me. And this weekend has really given us the tools to do that. I've had moral failure in the past, and God has fixed that and blessed us with a reversal child and another one on the way. And he's done a lot for us, and every single session was for us in many ways. But the spiritual warfare thing, I've always known it was there. And Satan attacks me over this moral failure all the time. But I know in my heart that God has forgiven me, and the things that I see in my son, I think this is my fault. And I know in my heart that it's not, and I'm just so thankful that this has been revealed to me. And anyway, God has really blessed me here. I hope that's helpful.
God has been doing a work in our family in a significant way since September or October. I struggled for a couple of years, and God's been doing some real intense work in our family this year. And when the information came about the conference, I just wrote across the top in pencil, I would be willing to attend this with you. And I put it on his desk and sort of hoped he wouldn't find it. There were a couple things I didn't want to happen. Because we've been struggling, I thought, well, this may be the thing God wants to use to just sort of culminate all the work that's been done, and I'm not sure I'm ready to be there yet. And plus, I know that a lot of times I have a tendency when I come home from a conference or something and God does something significant, and I begin to share, everybody starts to think, oh, I have to go hear that person. I have to go to that conference. I have to go to that place. And God doesn't like to share his glory. This is a process that God's doing in our life, and he's been doing a lot before we came here, and I know it's going to continue. I also didn't want to come to a conference that was going to be intense and cause me to go home feeling overwhelmed and inadequate. and just would give me more information than what I could handle. And God knew what we needed. And my husband cleaned off his desk and found the note and signed us up and took care of the child care arrangements, took care of all the details. All I had to do was show up. And so the night before we left, I put some clothes in a suitcase and we came. And what God has done for us here, I believe, is He gave us an oasis. These few days, we needed to rest and just have time to be strengthened and have our hope renewed, and that has happened.
Well, I wasn't going to share, but I guess I will now. Ladies, if y'all would not listen, I'd like to really exhort the men. The project we had for Mr. Logan to go and share with your wife, I wasn't allowed to do that. For years, I wasn't there for my wife. I was not interested in what she had to share, what she wanted to talk about. When you described loneliness, I realized that this lady's been lonely for 23 years because she didn't have anyone to share with. And the lady up front, said, you cried out to God to have someone to share with, and He didn't give you one. There's a worse answer. God did give my wife someone to share with. It just wasn't me. Talked about internet and email and all that kind of stuff. I have a real personal dealing with that. Thankfully, it was email and distance that she found someone to share with. We're praying, we're hoping that God will continue to work in our lives and bring us to the point where we can share intimate things. We've been going to counseling, and we're not there. And that's a difficult place to be. Satan will kill, and he will destroy. If we don't give our wives protection, and if we don't open ourselves up to communicate with them, to be real with them, and meet their needs. So I would just really encourage the men here, listen to what was said, and take advantage of what God has for us. While it's easy, God has the same answers, and we're trusting God for the answers, and we're looking forward, again, that the years that the locusts have eaten, that God will restore those years. But how much better it would have been for me to listen years ago and to open myself up and to be the husband that my wife needed, to be real and be tender and compassionate and to listen to what my wife had to say. Then we would not be praying that God would restore the years, but we'd be enjoying the fellowship and relationship that He has for us. So this conference is, she didn't say this is the third conference I'd asked her to come to. Well, actually, I'd asked her to come to 2, and she refused. But God moved her to come to this one, and so we're really encouraged, and we're just expecting God to do a miracle in our lives now.
Like my sister here, I can't get through this without crying. But the closer we get to the Lord, the more we see Him working in our lives, the easier it is for the tears to come, the tears of joy. Oh. Don and I had a jump on this conference. Ahead of most of y'all. We were blessed with a visit by Gloria and Ed and Steve and Carrie and the little baby in the hopper. And one of the things that Gloria said was there's going to be a couples conference in April, and Jim Logan's going to be the speaker. which we felt in our hearts we desperately wanted to talk with him and be with him and spend some time with him. And the other thing she said is, as soon as you hear about the brochures or whatever, get you a copy and get it in quickly. And so we talked to our homeschool superintendent and asked him to mail us a copy, which he did ahead of the meeting. And we turned it around and got it right back in so we can go. God wanted us here. The wisdom booklet we're on right now is Reconciliation. And I wanted to finish it before we came. But isn't it amazing how God brings your wisdom booklet to bear and the lessons in it that he really wants you to learn to reality? And so we were able to reconcile here. Ask forgiveness in one of each other of how we've wronged each other. And we're going home to ask forgiveness of our children. Thank you. And to also ask them to pray with us that we'll be the parents and the couple that God wants us to be. And finish that wisdom book like we need to. And we're so very grateful to Gloria and Ed. And then he saw to it that they came to our place for a short visit. Thank you.
Let's give Ed and Gloria a big
That's not fair. I feel like I'm only half here when he's in the kitchen. It's amazing to me how God works. Because what I struggled with most when we started these couples conferences were the fact that we had needs as a couple. And my husband wasn't even going to be in here to get to listen. And we even videotaped the one from December so that he could watch it. But it's amazing the one God had watching it that needed to change. It wasn't Ed. And when this one came up, in the last few months, because of the time my husband has spent in the Word, much of what I heard when I got to sit in on this one, and much of what you'd shared in your testimonies, God has been doing in our lives in about the last 3 or 4 months without the conference. But it's funny, Ed told me years ago when we got into ATI and I used to struggle so much with the fact that he couldn't go to Knoxville, he'd say, honey, it's all coming out of God's Word. He doesn't have to do it through a conference. And he's right, but I'm glad God brought you here. And I'm glad that this is the vehicle that he used in your lives. Because we're here and we're busy. And we need that time of fellowship when God can bring in couples. We need that time that we can feel like we just can reach out to other people and serve them because that's the desire God's laid on our hearts. And I know my husband's just going to enjoy this testimony tape. And I know it'll bless him as he tries to get a little rest this week and just has a chance to share. Actually, I hadn't originally planned when we did the couples pictures that would be a vehicle we could use, but I could see I'm going to have a set made for us that we can put names on so that as we pray for you or as we listen to the tape or as we talk over different things that happen and everything, we'll be able to look back at your pictures and see you. when we take the group photo, it's a little hard to identify people through that sometimes, but I can see that we're going to have a set made of all those pictures for us so that we can pray for you by name and by sight and just really uplift you throughout this year. Speaking of pictures, we have 4 minutes in which to do our group photograph before we go to breakfast. What we're going to do is we're going to go couple by couple. I'm just going to have to place it upon your arms that if you know that you're probably a little taller, we're going to go down in the lobby, and those taller ones kind of get back towards the door, and the shorter ones make your way up towards the front, and we'll just, if you're a little taller, head out first. If you're a little shorter, head out second. Stand couple to couple. I tell you what, after we take the picture, we'll just have breakfast prayer down there.